Hey everyone. I've gotten a couple of requests over the years to take a closer look at the gun that I compete with. So I figured I'd do a little video and go over some of the features, some of the characteristics, take a look at the trigger, and just give my overall impressions of this firearm. Basically what I did was I called CZ Customs and I said, hey, I'm really into the CZ75s, I'm really into IDPA and USPSA. Build me the ultimate, call it IDPA ESP gun. So I want a single action gun with a magwell, the works. Give me what you can give me. And I called the guys up and we walked through together over all of my options and things we could do. And this is what we built together. And I love this firearm. This is maybe the best shooting handgun that I've ever shot. Arguably, it shoots better than my $5,000 Wilson Combat 1911. I prefer the trigger of the 75, the way that this one's set up, and the gun handles like a dream. I like the 75s a lot because the weight balance of the gun is very, very neutral between the grip and the top of the frame and the slide. A lot of guns like the SIG 320 feel very, very top heavy, kind of bloated to me. These guns feel very lean and very neutral feeling, which I really, really like. Like a steel version of a Glock. The Glocks to me also feel kind of balanced that way, although they're a little bit top heavy because they're polymer. The steel gun is of course even more balanced. So this to me was the ultimate competition gun. And so anyway, they built this gun for me and I've been shooting it for the last couple years. I shoot it at state matches and local matches and do very well with it. They've done some internal work to this gun and I don't really know what exactly. I know that the firing pin is polished. I know that the barrel's polished and the locking lugs are polished, so they've done some internal work to the gun. I'm not exactly sure all what they've done. Here are some of the basics. So the first thing, of course, is I went with the Accu Shadow. So this is a 75 Shadow. This is not an SPO1, doesn't have the rail, and they did the bushing on here. Now you can go read on their website, but apparently it improves accuracy by a measurable amount. And I had my gunsmith do the crown. I didn't have CZC do the crown. I wasn't thinking of it at the time, but I had my gunsmith do the crown, and I really like that. I opted for their target sights. They're adjustable, windage and elevation, solid black with a tight notch, and a 7.5mm fiber optic front sight. I went with their aluminum, very, very thin aluminum, heavy texture grip. So these are really aggressive, but they're very, very thin. I like a thin grip. I don't like palm swell. I went with their IDPA legal magwell. Has to be able to fit in a box, of course. And of course, I am running their single action trigger. So this gun is now a single action only firearm. And I really, really like the flat face trigger. I really like that. I run the flat face triggers in my AR as well. And the other thing that I did was I actually swapped back out the magazine release. So this comes with an extended D-style magazine release that sticks out farther than this, maybe a millimeter or two. And I have really, really huge hands. And when I grip the firearm, I sit really high on the gun, way up here on the frame. And the meat of my thumb, the muscle here on my thumb presses right into the magazine release, and I was inevitably dropping maybe one magazine every match, and just, you know, at first I thought maybe something was wrong with the gun, and I realized, yeah, I think I'm hitting it with my left palm. Sure enough, I swapped back out to the regular size magazine release, and the problem went away instantly. So I have big hands. I have no problem hitting this normally with my thumb anyway. So to me, the extended magazine release was a disadvantage. This is a lot better, but of course your mileage may vary. And of course the star of this show here is the trigger. So I had my gunsmith work on this trigger a little bit. When I got this from CZC, I would actually get a little bit of camming when pulling the trigger on this guy. And for those of you who don't know what camming is, it's when the hammer's back and your trigger's here, and you take the slack, you take the take up out of the trigger. As the hammer is starting to fall, as the trigger is breaking, the way the sear and the hammer interact, the hammer actually comes back a little bit and then will drop. And you have some pull weight increase, that it increases your pull weight a little bit, and it doesn't break as crisp. I like my triggers to break as crisp as possible, which is one reason why I'm running the Shadow. It doesn't have a firing pin block. And I'm sure you've heard the phrase breaking like a candy cane. What that means is you can't bend a candy cane. So when you have the tension on it, when it's going to go, when it snaps clean. That's what you want a trigger to do. You don't want the trigger to have a bunch of, you don't want it to have mush or creep where it kind of creeps back while it's breaking before it actually goes. To me, personally, the crisper the trigger breaks, the less I can predict it, and then the less muzzle movement I have when the trigger breaks. That's important to me. So yeah, single action only. I'll see if I can show you what the trigger break looks like, and watch the hammer at the same time. You'll see that there's no camming at all on this gun, which is nice. So I have about 1.5 millimeter take up, just like that. And then when you hit the wall here, you should see no creep at all before the hammer falls. It breaks that crisp. So millimeter take up, break. Which is what you like. And the reset is also very nice. It's a very tactile reset. One of the other big advantages that a lot of guys don't talk about with running a single action gun is I'm not tempted to run a lightweight trigger return spring. The double action guys, for their first trigger pull, will oftentimes swap out the trigger return spring for a lighter spring, which makes your double action trigger pull lighter. But it also makes the tension on your reset lighter. And I don't like a light reset. I like a heavy return spring. And I like the weight of the pull to relatively match the weight of the reset. To me, that lets me run my finger faster. I get faster splits doing it that way. And the single action gun running the standard weight trigger spring lets me do that. So the reset is actually, I mean, it's not heavy, but it helps me get my finger out of the way. On my PO1, for example, I had the lightened trigger return spring, and the reset is so light, I'm going to swap it back out to the other one. I just don't care for it. And that's the basics of the gun. Beautiful gun. Call the guys up at CZC and talk to those guys. They'll walk you, through the phone. They'll walk you through all the options they can do for you, and they can build you a hell of a 75. And they're not cheap. These guns are not cheap when they're built like this, but to me they're worth every penny. I have this is my primary competition gun with the works, and I have a backup version of the exact same gun. This is none of the internal work at all, no bushing, just the standard combat sights. I think it's a combat sight, it's just the solid non-adjustable sights. The only thing I did to this Shadow was the same mag wheel, the same grips, and the same trigger, because I wanted the interface to feel the same in my hands. And this gun's trigger is very, very similar. It's not any different, which is pretty nice. This gun the break is a little heavier. So this gun breaks at about 3 pounds, and my primary gun breaks at about 2.7, which you'll see here has a similar kind of take up, a little more take up than the other one does, but breaks easily as clean. And this gun is bone stock on the inside. And that's what you want for a trigger. That's how I like to run them. Anyway, guys, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to hit me up. Hit up the guys at CZC and see what they can do for you. Have a good weekend.
Are you ready? Stand by. Beautiful. Oh, 3, 2, 3.